Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Wednesday devotional. Today is February 11th, and we are in the book of 1 Peter. Let's review our memory verse. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. 1 Peter 4:10. On Wednesdays, we do a word study, which means we look at the original language of the memory verse, and then we look at different definitions of that word and how it might be used in other areas of the Bible so that we can understand a little bit more about what that word might mean and how we could interpret that verse. So let's start with the word gift. So the word gift is in the Greek, it is charisma. You may know that word. And it means this: a favor with which one receives without any merit of his own, the gift of divine grace, the gift of faith, knowledge, holiness, virtue, the economy of divine grace by which the pardon of sin and eternal salvation is appointed to sinners in consideration of the merits of Christ laid hold of by faith. That's a long definition. And basically, it just means the exchange of grace for sin. And then the last one is grace or gifts denoting extraordinary powers, distinguishing certain Christians and enabling them to serve the Church of Christ, the reception of which is due to the power of divine grace operating on their souls by the Holy Spirit. So the bottom line is gift is something that we receive, which we have not earned, but is a free gift from God. And what that gift does, it is allows us to serve others. Okay, so gift or charisma. The next word that we're going to look at is diakonos. Diakonos is a word that means to serve. So some ways it is, or some translations it's serve, and other translations it's minister. So diakono means to be a servant, attendant, domestic, to serve, to wait upon, to minister to one, render ministering offices to be served, to wait at a table and offer food and drink, to minister or supply food or the necessities of life, to take care of the poor, to attend to anything that may serve another's interests. So lots of definitions that basically mean the same thing. So our memory verse tells us that each of us has received a gift and that we are to use that gift to serve others, to minister to others. And so what does that mean? It can mean anything. It could mean providing for their basic needs. It could be providing food or shelter or clothing. But then it could also go a little bit deeper. Okay. So it could be more of to be a servant, to make yourself available. So whether that be your time, your talents, or your treasure, that the gifts that we have been given to us so that we can minister or meet the needs of the people around us. Let's take a look at the word faithful. So it says, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So faithful is translated as good in some translations, but either word, good or faithful, comes from the original Greek kalos, and it has some interesting, we'll say, some interesting definitions. So when you look at how it's used, it means beautiful, handsome, excellent, eminent, choice, surpassing, precious, useful, suitable. So that makes you kind of go, what? How is that word translated as faithful in some translations? Then we see things like good, excellent in its nature and characteristics, genuine, approved, precious, praiseworthy, noble, beautiful by reason of purity of heart and life, honorable, affecting the mind agreeably. So all of these words we have as translated in the NIV as faithful. Why? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think in some translations as good stewards, that makes sense, as good stewards. But I think what the translators were going for was to help us as readers, modern readers of the Bible, to understand what it meant to be kalos. Okay, so here in this context, it's not about being beautiful. It's about being beautiful, a beautiful steward. And a beautiful steward is one that's faithful, that perseveres and continues when maybe we don't want to. We don't want to steward our gifts well. Maybe we don't want to use our gifts to serve others, but those that are faithful, those that are kalos stewards, right? Those are people who are going to continue to be faithful even when it would be easier to use our gifts for ourselves. And we can all admit to that, right? It's always easier to use something for selfish reasons than it is in the service of others. So I think the word good makes more sense in this particular translation, but the NIV has chosen as faithful stewards. So next, let's take a look at the word steward. The Greek word that's translated as steward is oikonomos, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And what it means is this: the manager of a household or of household affairs, especially a steward, a manager, a superintendent, and then the manager of a farm or a landed estate, an overseer, the superintendent of a city's finances, the treasurer. And then later it's a metaphor for the apostles and Christian teachers. So a steward has been equated with the idea of someone who is in charge of something, whether it be land, a city, a country's finances. That's a lot of responsibility. And so when you understand that, you understand the responsibility that you have over the gifts that you have been given. So why is it so important that we serve others? Because we want to be found a good or a faithful steward, an overseer of all of the things that God has given us. We want that well done, good and faithful servant. And in order to do that, we have to be faithful. We have to take care of the gifts that God has given us. And how do we do that? We use them for the benefit of the people around us. That's kind of a hard thing to think about. But if you think of yourself as a steward, then that means that the things that you are controlling or the things that you are using are not your own. They're not your own. They're not for your purposes. You're in charge of them. You are controlling them. You are kind of deciding where they go. But at the end of the day, they're not yours.